Yeah,
Yeah,
and
there's
I'm not
well, the
jumping
one
on
in
you.
Iran is war. That's war. Iran's a real enemy. It's a different.
Are they enemy to America?
Well, what they are is the largest country in terms of like state-sponsored terrorism. They're the largest sponsor of terrorism.
So yeah, Joe Rogan here saying that Iran is the largest sponsor of state-sponsored terrorism. So just to look at a few of the groups that are all the groups that Iran sponsors. We've got Hezbollah, we've got Hamas, and we've got the Houthis. And each of these groups, if you were to ask them for their ideals and what they're trying to achieve, they would say that they're just freedom fighters. They would say that they are resisting occupation and Western colonialism. So yeah, it'd be really good if Joe Rogan could have someone on his show that represent these groups, that are a bit more sympathetic to these groups. So then there can be a dialogue of someone who's been taught one thing, and the group speaking for themselves are explaining their position, and there can be a back and forth of conversation and dialogue, so everyone can learn. Problem is there though, if someone, for example, a pro Hezbollah person was to sit down in front of Joe Rogan, maybe the show would get cancelled. And if someone was pro Hezbollah, especially publicly, there would be real fear of being arrested. So that censoring of speech, that lack of freedom of speech, which is what we love in our Western nations so much, isn't very existent when it comes to these kind of topics. So I wonder who the real terrorists are.
But also you got to think why. And this is not excusing anybody for Islamist ideology, because it's scary, because they want a global caliphate, right? They're radicals.
Iran wants a global caliphate and they're radicals. If any nation is Islamic nation, if any so-called Islamic nation is against a global caliphate, it's Iran. Iran had its own borders and was not even part of the Ottoman Caliphate. Iran has no interest in becoming an Islamic caliphate for the world, a global Islamic caliphate. That's something that's the job of people like Jesus, and the job of, according to the Islamic opinion, this is the job of Jesus and Imam Mahdi, peace be upon them. These are people that when they come, if you reject them because they're truly from God, according to this kind of epistemology and this belief system, if they're truly from God, if they're coming down and they're raising people back to life from the dead, and they're splitting the moon in half, and you can see all these miraculous things that they're doing, and they're bringing a really just nation, okay, that's their job to bring a global caliphate. It's not the job of Sayyid Khamenei to be a global caliphate leader. He has no interest. He's just caring, the IRGC, they only care about the Iranian borders. They're not here to make China Muslim and then make the US Muslim and have a global caliphate where we're all getting tax from people, etc. Shia Muslims don't care about global caliphates. We really don't care about it.
But you got to go back to what happened in that country. And if you go back to what happened in that country, they tried to nationalize oil. Iran was like a westernized country. Girls were wearing miniskirts,
Oh
everybody's
yeah,
hot.
you seen That video from the 70s
Oh,
of
yeah,
Iran?
bro. Everybody
Tits are
looked great.
popping.
So-
Just popping.
What happened is slowly but surely, and quickly at first, because when they tried to nationalize oil, the CIA swooped in and they fucking got that guy out of office, and they allowed these Islamic, radicalists to start running the country.
Well, that's when
They kinda
Hezbollah
placed
started,
them.
right?
I don't know exactly when
Yeah.
Hezbollah started, but the point is the country was doing fine before we monkeyed with it. And we monkeyed with it because they were not getting enough of the money from the oil.
So that's a fair statement. There's no need for Western forces to mess around with Iranian nationalization of oil. That is the reason that they wanted to get rid of the previous ruling power from the Shah, which I believe is the Qajar dynasty. They got rid of that because that's what they were doing, Mossadegh, etc. And then they implanted the Shah, so then they could have friendly oil relations.
So it was the British Petroleum Company, I think. Put it into perplexity, the story of Iran, their government being overthrown. I think it was in the 1950s. So when you see like how it all played out and why it is what it is today, Jesus Christ, you'd be mad too.
Yeah.
And when you're mad and you're surrounded by bigger enemies that all have nuclear weapons, you don't even have nuclear weapons, wouldn't you be trying to make them? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying Iran should have nuclear weapons.
If one country is allowed nuclear weapons, all countries of all sovereign nations should be allowed nuclear weapons. Simple as that. I don't know why one nation wants to have nuclear weapons and stops other nations from having nuclear weapons. That's essentially bullying. I mean, we've been fed all this kind of stuff about North Korea. We really need to worry about North Korea and their military capability and their nuclear weapons. How long are we going to listen to this fear-mongering about North Korea? North Korea ain't done anything to anyone. They're just chilling. If they were that crazy, they would have used their nuclear weapon by now. But clearly, it seems North Korea is actually not that crazy.
I don't think anybody should have nuclear weapons. They
But
definitely
Israel
should.
gets to have them.
Allegedly. This is the problem. Allegedly.
Everything's
they have
allegedly with
them.
them.
But allegedly they
Except
have
for the
them.
genocide.
They don't officially have them.
Right.
I don't think they admit they officially have them. And you know who was a big opponent of Israel getting nuclear weapons?
JFK.
JFK. Yeah. That's what a lot of people think led back into the left.
Oh, yeah. Before they killed him, who? I don't know.
So
What'd
the
you say?
Iranian Revolution, also called the Islamic Revolution, was a mass uprising in Iran, overthrew the Shah's monarchy in 1979, replaced it with an Islamic republic led by Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini.
Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. I love the pronunciation. It's Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. Ruhollah is his first name. And it's interesting. I want to mention here, what does Ruhollah mean? Ruhollah comes from the title of Jesus, given to Jesus by the Quran, which means the Spirit of God. And I don't know, Ayatollah Khomeini's parents decided to name him after that title, Ruhollah. Beautiful name, to be honest.
Shout out Ruko. They call it
I want you to
nickname.
go back to the national, ask it a question of what was the events that led to them trying to nationalize their oil. Here it is. No, that's not it. What was banned real opposition using secret police to surveil jail? Just put into ask another question. What were the events that took place after Iran tried to nationalize oil? Just ask that question. What are the events that took place when Iran tried to nationalize oil?
Bruh, fuck oil. I'd rather walk if this is the shit that's going to come out of all of it. You feel
The
me, Joe?
problem is it's not just oil for your car. It's everything you use. Plastic is, they use petroleum-based chemicals are responsible for medicine.
But it's also getting in our nuts now, and people can't even fucking read anymore because of it. So it's like, what is all that stuff helping us anymore?
Yeah, here it is. So Iran's attempt to nationalize its oil in the 1950s unfolded as a chain of political, economic, and international confrontations centered on Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh. How do you say his name? Mossadegh? Mossadegh?
Let me see. Mossadegh.
Mossadegh. And British-controlled Anglo-Iranian oil company. I'll walk you through the key events. But it had to do with who was in control of the oil before that, like who was making the money before that. I know Perplexity's going to give us the fucking tinfoil hat story of how it went down. But the bottom line is, people are making a lot of money over there in oil, and they wanted most of the money, and they got boxed out. And then they wound up with a fucking psychotic dictator.
They wound up with a psychotic dictator, that being Ayatollah Khomeini, Ayatollah Khamenei. You can't just sit down, Joe Rogan, and get away with calling the leader of around 300 million people across the world of different nationalities, all Shia Muslims. You can't just sit down and say that they're psychotic leaders. That shows a lack of understanding, a lack of reading, and basically just eating up all the propaganda that you've been fed. I have no idea what you believe is psychotic about Ayatollah Khamenei. The amount of things that happened before Khamenei even responded, and how he's always on the back foot to respond to something that's been, to respond to attacks that have been placed upon him and his assets, shows you that he's not the psychotic one. Qasem Soleimani gets killed in Iraq. He has a group called Hamas that he funds and helps so that they can defend their own Palestinian land. The head of Hamas, Ismail, he's chilling in Iran during the war with Israel. He gets bombed in Iran. Iran didn't do anything back. The first time that Iran actually did anything back was last June 2025, the 12-day war. And again, that was because Israel and America bombed Iran. I mean, the next time anything happened was after the leader was assassinated. You go and watch videos of Ayatollah Khamenei. You need to put yourself in this position to actually look at this person and see what he says, see how he conducts himself, and you'll understand if he's a psychotic dictator or not. He's not even the president of Iran. He's the supreme leader. Their role is for Islamic guidance of the nation. Their role isn't to rule all the affairs. When a nation gets into a nitty-gritty between something being Islamically lawful or not, that's when the supreme leader tries to step in. But you wouldn't know this.
Yeah.
And a lot of if you look back on what Iran looked like when it was a westernized country, like, damn, we should have fucking supported whatever the fuck was going on back then.
I know. I think, do you feel like we used to?
If you had supported what was going on back then during the time of the Shah, do you really think that Palestine would have anything left? This red line that we call Palestine and Gaza right now, that if you stand on the Israeli side of it, you're pretty much wrong. And if you stand on the other side of it, you're on the side of justice and truth. And you know which way the genocide is going. Do you think anyone would say anything about it if Iran didn't help it resist? No country in the world would say anything about this genocide if Iran wasn't helping the Palestinians resist it themselves.
Do things that were better, and then we got
Here's the tinfoil hat version.
You know, as a final message to Joe Rogan, whose content I enjoy a lot, who I love to watch when he's commentating on the UFC, and he's made a career of not being an expert. That's one thing that we love Joe Rogan podcast for, is because he's not the expert in the room. Right now he's in a room with Theo Von. So the expert in the room is actually Joe Rogan, and he's trying to come up with all this nonsense. My advice to you is stick to what you're good at. You're good at not being the expert. Don't try to make claims about this person's a dictator and that country was terrible when it's Islamic. At the end of the day, what you're sounding like to me and to many other Muslims across the world, especially Shia Muslims and supporters of Iran, etc., what you're saying is if any country has joined their church and state, their politics and religion, and actually has puts weight behind the existence of God and says that there is a God watching over our laws, you're calling that an extreme state. And you will call them rulers psychotic because they actually believe in God, which I'm sure you also believe in God as well, Joe Rogan. There's so many Shia Iranian experts that you could bring onto your show to speak about these issues with. Why don't you go ahead and do that? I've not seen you once bring someone who's an expert on these things into your show to talk about what's going on in the world. It's literally World War III. And you've not spoken, I've not seen you speak to the American or Israeli side, nor have I seen you speak to the Iranian side. Maybe you should do that before going ahead and making these blanket statements about a whole nation, about a whole people who support this what you call regime.